So, hi to everyone joining us online. Hopefully for what's going to be a really interesting 40, 50 minutes or so with this with this lovely panel. But before I ask them to introduce themselves, maybe just a little bit of admin. So please feel free to ask questions. You should have the chat option there, so pop your questions into chat, and I'll try and pick those up as we go along, if and when I can, or I'll be prompted to do so. And also, you can see top left a QR code. So if at any point you're able to scan that, will take you through to a contact us form where you can fill in your details and be contacted back by an expert from the Infobip team. So maybe before going any further, opportunity to firstly introduce myself. So I'm Dave Boddington. I'm the head of product for RCS at Infobip. So I work across all our markets with all our partners, carriers, Google, and the like, really driving and growing RCS as a channel for ourselves. But today's definitely not about me. We've got a fantastic panel here, and I'll ask them each to introduce themselves a little bit first. So maybe first, Will, if you're able to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I manage all things telecom and compliance at Bonzo. So it's a vertical CRM in the mortgage space. Really, our differentiator is that messaging is the center of the universe of what we do. So we primarily do 10DLC, SMS, and MMS, but we're also extremely excited about RCS. For us, it's really two things. It's the verified sender so that people know that they're communicating directly with their lender. A lot of financial fraud out there. And so it's a big piece for us, but also our users use MMS at a really high level. And we've seen through Infobip a lot of incredible studies of how valuable RCS is in terms of engagement. And so we are extremely excited about being able to offer this to our customers as well.
Brilliant. And David, maybe you next, please.
Yes, sure. I mean, it's like my name is David or David Fernandez. I've been working in the telco industry all my life. Started with SMS, but then I worked for Meta in the WhatsApp space. And my last job was in Google doing RCS. Actually, I'm working for a company called Messaging Advisory, and we are helping brands to figure out their messaging strategy and their future approach on how they can engage with customers. And that includes not only RCS, but the future way of engaging with AI. And that's something that is getting us very, very excited.
Brilliant. And last and certainly not least, Emily.
My name is Emily Flanigan. I'm the head of marketing for the Americas at Infobip. And I've been here at Infobip for about 4 years now, and I think as we've kind of moved along with RCS in the U.S. here in the past, I guess, year or so, it's been really exciting for me to see the things that we're deploying for customers, to see how it's built from the ground up, to learn from people like David that we're working with quite a bit. And then see how excited our customers are, at the results. So it's been really exciting for me to see how it's moving along, especially being at ground zero with everybody else trying to build it up. So
brilliant. And so yeah, to kind of tee up the subject, why rich messaging is the future of customer engagement. I guess rich messaging, interactive messaging, it's been talked about for an awfully long time, and maybe it's fair to say the hype has exceeded the capability, and certainly how much it's been utilized. But we are here now, and so whilst maybe the North American markets have been behind maybe some other markets in terms of the adoption of RCS. If you look at the UK, Germany, France, in Europe, India, and of course in Latin, Mexico and Brazil are really kind of standout markets where there is a real maturity to the channel. Realistically, the US is, from my opinion at least, going to serve as a bit of a benchmark, a bit of a blueprint for the channel. The significance of the market, I don't think, can be really understated. There's some significant brands, there's significant interest. There's a real opportunity in the market. So And we're right at the start of that journey now. There's some really interesting kind of moves in the market from carrier side as well as platform side and aggregator side, such as ourselves. So there's lots to talk about. We definitely won't squeeze it all into this session, and there absolutely will be more a little bit later. Maybe to kick off the conversation, just to talk a little bit about the state of messaging and some of the trends and shifts, and maybe directed to you first, Emily. So from your perspective, what do you think's changed in terms of consumer expectations when it comes to messaging, maybe over the last few years? And again, why does it feel like we're at a really nice, interesting point now?
Yeah, I think there's probably like three main things that come to my mind. When you look at it from a generational standpoint, we have a lot of more digital savvy consumers. Millennials are very digital savvy people. Gen Z, huge part of the consumers these days. They're all digital. So phone and email don't cut it anymore. People want to connect with the brands on the channels they choose, whether that's social media, SMS messaging, apps. And then as consumers are moving from channel to channel interacting with brands, they expect it to be a seamless experience. I think the second thing is people don't want to wait anymore. They want an instant real-time response, 24/7 even. And it's not like, I would say your grandma's day of 24/7 customer support, because basic automated messages, they just aren't accepted anymore. So I think there's this expectation from consumers for this, either a human connection or an AI-driven human-like support. And for businesses there, I think that there's a delicate balance to strike, but and trust plays a huge factor in that. And then the third thing I'm thinking of is personalization. They expect customer experiences that are tailored for them. There's an evolution from this kind of static customer profile into something more dynamic based on their behavior and their preferences. So people really love that one-to-one connection with the brand.
Interesting. Yeah, no, absolutely right. And so maybe looking at it from then another perspective, rather than just from the consumer side, David, what kind of other factors do you see that are at play now in the market that's really, I guess, heralding in the opportunity that we're seeing at the moment?
So, well, there are several ones that are interesting. For example, one is, and you mentioned this before, right? The brands, they've been becoming more aware that they can do more things with their customers, and the customers are more savvy, as Emily has already mentioned. The only question is actually, actually the channels that, in particular in the US, when it comes to the connection between brands and consumers, are a little bit more off. And particularly, we're talking about SMS. The main reason is because, you receive a number. In most of the cases, it's not authenticated. There is a lot of potential fraud and spams and other things. And there is new channels like RCS where, it can be verified by a very well-known entity. It can be the carrier. It can be Google. It is branded and it's very rich. And then you have an opportunity to start engaging with the customers very differently. That's something that definitely is going to be important, and the awareness of brands about how they can start engaging with the customers in a much more secure and much more richer way is starting to sound very, very promising and very interesting. We've seen brands that, they've been getting pretty good results in terms of great campaigns. And on the other front, I think it's very important because this is a channel that is going to be regulated, particularly in the US. The carriers have expressed their interest to accelerate the adoption of this type of solutions. And we can see Verizon and T-Mobile and hopefully very soon AT&T pretty active in order just to promote the channel and to drive commercials that, are going to be very interesting for brands as well as consumers.
So you've got kind of consumers wanting more kind of digital when they demand it, how they demand it, kind of interactions, as Emily said, and David, as you said, maybe there was I don't know, a vacuum, but there was a space where brands can capitalize and use that. Just kind of, I'm just digging into one of the points there you touched on. Do you see that maybe they're not getting what they want, or they're seeing diminishing returns from the channels they were previously or are currently using, for example, that's really making them look at RCS and richer messaging as a potential opportunity there?
Oh, that's a really good question. I do believe that SMS still is gonna be there as well as email. I think that Emily mentioned really well the point. Is like at the end of the day, you are a brand. You have to reach the users where they are in their own terms, and that's what a new channels like RCS can give you. But I would not discard that brands could continue using other channels to continue having a multi-channel conversation or communication with their customers. I think that the question is more about how you're going to be able to enable the discussions with your customers in their own terms. The beauty of these new channels is they are rich, so you can do way more. And this is how I define like the concept of digital transformation channel, but it's a messaging transformation channel where you are not doing only just a one-to-one communication one way. You can have to do two-way communication, and in that sense you can start enabling a lot of different use cases that you couldn't even imagine. It's like basically on your mobile phone you have like a mini app. I'm not saying that I want to compete or we want to compete with the apps, but you're going to have a mini app that is going to enable the brands to do way more things that they were able to use before or to do before.
Yeah, no, really interesting. You touched on a couple of interesting points there around kind of the current risks in other channels, whether they be mobile or otherwise, fraud and phishing and the like, and the importance of brand verification and branding and brand identity. And maybe it'd be really good to kind of get your point of view of how important you see that, and what the kind of that verification that RCS brings into consumers' inboxes.
Yeah,
Well, it's
absolutely.
critical. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say absolutely. So I see this as I see that David and Emily are both very correct here, and that consumer choice is what is paramount right now. And AI, at the same time that we have app fatigue increasing, people don't want to download additional apps to communicate with brands. We also see AI creating the ability for us to have automated communication at scale. And so where I see there being still a hole in the market, though, and as far as a hole that RCS can fill, and we see the data that backs this up, is that people want to communicate with brands on their own terms and ways that they can very simply do that. But they also want to know who they're communicating with. And so 48% of customers prefer to receive text messages over any other kind of communication. And 49% said that they would have more trust in brands if it was a verified logo or a check mark. And just to really hammer that home, 75% of consumers who received a branded text said it increased their trust in that communication. So we see that people want to receive text messages from brands, but they want to know who they're actually communicating with, because to David's point, there is a lot of financial fraud, especially in the financial services industry, which is the industry that I obviously work in. And so we see this a lot of we're all told, don't click on a link in a message if you don't know who the sender is. We've all been told that. And yet people do still want to communicate through that channel. And so RCS enables people to do that. Where I see the challenge is that, and where we're really going to have to dial in our approval process, both on the aggregator side and the KYC process, and for the actual verification of the senders themselves, is that the trepidation that we as consumers have of clicking links completely goes away when it is a verified sender. And so I see challenges in the future, 12 to 18 months down the road, of specifically what do we do in a situation where there's an account takeover or brand impersonation. I think those are going to be the main hurdles on the compliance and security side that are going to be hurdles that we have to overcome, because people are going to click those links if it says Delta Airlines or if it says Bank of America on it. They're going to interact with it.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. And I think that's kind of pick up on a point I mentioned right at the start. I think that's where the US and North American market is going to actually really serve as a bit of a lighthouse for other markets. It's already got a really robust compliance and governance around its existing short code 10 DLC toll-free messaging, and kind of rolling that into RCS as well. And if anything, enhancing it for RCS with third-party independent verification of brands and agents that are being used to communicate with users, kind of gives the credibility behind that tick that users see next to the logo. And so yeah, you're absolutely right. I think that's really, really important. I did see that someone scanned the QR code top left. There's a little kind of message that comes up on screen, and on the plus side, I get a cream cake every time it happens. So I'm expecting to get I'm going to be putting on some weight, but please, guys, feel free to scan that QR code if and when you can. It was touched on earlier in terms of some of the kind of the use case and what early adopters are starting to see from the channel, some of the performance, because it's a logical extension. Say if consumers want to be engaged over the mobile channel, they want to engage with brands and know they can trust them, per kind of William's and Emily's points previously, then that leads to higher response rate, higher engagement, and better performance of activation. So kind of maybe starting with you, David, we're already seeing some strong use cases, and you've been involved in quite a few already, I know. So maybe you can talk about some kind of real life examples that you've been involved in that kind of really speak to that point, speak to the benefit of the channel and the kind of performance that you're seeing.
Yeah, no, I mean, particularly when it comes to the US, we've seen definitely some companies spearheading and testing the channel, and particularly when it comes to big moments in time like Black Friday or Christmas campaigns, we definitely were working with companies like Simple Human, where they were launching campaigns and they were exploring some of the richness of the capabilities of the channel. In this case, they decided to launch RCS using what we call the rich cards, which basically allows you to put an image on a video and a specific call to actions. And based on that, the results were pretty good compared to the existing campaigns. I mean, up to a point that some of the data points that we have, they were able just to get over 70% response rates and eventually 250% conversions in some of the cases, particularly when they use very interactive media, like, for example, videos and animated spaces in that front. They are not the only ones. We've seen other brands already launching. And which is very interesting, and this I haven't seen yet in the US, but I've seen in other parts of the world when I was working for Google. Some of the brands, they've been doing A/B testing, comparing like pure SMS campaigns to just pure basic RCS campaigns. It's exactly the same thing. The only thing that they were adding is like just the logo, the verification, and the name of the channel. And in particular, in markets like Mexico, for example, banks like Bancoppel were already getting outstanding results, like over, again, like 80% better results and outcomes to what they were getting from the traditional SMS campaigns. And the more interesting aspect of it, I think William already mentioned, is like one of the beauties of this channel is that you can get analytics as well of the user behavior. And they found that, I think this was the more like the aha moment that everybody had at the moment in time. Like the bank specifically were thinking that a particular segment of people were more responsive to the SMS messaging. It was people in the range of the 40-something onwards. Yeah. And they found out through the channel that it was not the case. It was in the 20-something. And I think that, going to Emily's point, is like the Gen Z, the generation, people are much more engaged with the channel. So that helped them not only just to figure out that how to use the channel, but as well which should be the right audience to work with the channel at that moment in time. For example, it was a really, really aha moment for everybody of us.
Yeah, it can be surprising actually what audience is receptive to messaging, and yeah, knocking down maybe some of those preconceptions is yeah, the benefit of being kind of actually early to a channel is the kind of learnings that you can gain from that. And maybe on that point, Emily, obviously, it'd be really good to know, particularly maybe honing in on that kind of the retail kind of marketing promotional area, because that's one where performance is key. And so, that's, if it doesn't work, it won't be used. So it'd be really good to know what kind of use cases you've come across and which you see have been really effective.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of what David was talking about, which is, as a marketer, testing is everything. And the use cases and the stories that I like reading are the ones where you're seeing how RCS compares to SMS. Running the same campaign, just in an SMS way and an RCS way. And so there was one retail company we worked with where they switched the campaign from SMS to RCS, and the campaign results were, over 100% increase in revenue when compared to their previous SMS campaign, which is huge. And then also when you look at click-through rates, click-through rates for their SMS campaign were running between 2 and 3%. The click-through rate for RCS was 20%. that's a huge difference in click-through rates, as a marketer. And so what's the key difference here? And that was the ability to show the products in a visual way using higher quality images, engaging videos, the rich media cards, interactive buttons. And so the customer journey was all in the same chat. It's seamless. You're not clicking on links to leave the chat or to go to another app or a web browser, which is a big impact as well. So that real business impact is all just by delivering a campaign in a more visually engaging way, which seems very simple.
Yeah, and you touched on a really interesting point that and it's kind of it goes in some way to answer one of the questions that's come in terms of how RCS is expected to evolve in a world where kind of messaging apps dominate. So one of the more recent features that was released and is being rolled out now is actually, as Emily mentioned, there is WebView in-app browser, so that the user's not clicking out to a separate browser. We know that's a drop-off point. We know consumers go, whoa, or the browser doesn't load. So we know that results in decrease in response. So where that's opening up in the browser, in the messaging app experience, you're staying very contextual. You're getting then more people kind of hitting that page and completing the action within that. I think that's definitely one of those areas where, particularly around maybe some of the more superfluous, lightweight apps that brands may have, actually, there's an awful lot bang for your buck, given the performance that we're seeing here. Kind of extending that a little bit with you, Will, in terms of kind of thinking about kind of the adoption, technical adoption of the channel, growing kind of in a platform environment. How are your customers using rich messaging to stand out and to differentiate themselves?
Yeah, great question. So again, our customers right now are really leveraging MMS in a really unique way. And so the key that they're implementing, and that I would suggest that anyone implements if you are going to do MMS, is that or any rich messaging, is that the content of the message drives the conversation forward. And so it's describing with a nice GIF or a funny image or whatever that incorporates the conversation that they're actually having at that time. And so what we see is that personalized approach to messaging drives responses. And what RCS allows you to do is have significantly more personalized messages. What Emily was talking about that I really think is interesting with RCS is how there is so much more data that is available. And especially right now with the rise of AI and everything else, you can use that first party, that zero party data that you have to really tailor those in-message experiences to those specific customers. And so our customers today, of course, are just using a specific GIF to talk about, it's closing time, congratulations or whatever, and a funny GIF about that. And so that's engaging for the customer. But if we know what buttons they're actually clicking on, how that user interacts within the messaging window, and we have that feedback of that data, we can really tailor that experience for that specific user and make a significantly more engaging experience, which is at the end of the day, what we as platforms want to do is enable our customers to create a more exciting journey for their end customers and their prospects that they're working with.
Yeah, no, really interesting. I kind of want to cycle back a little bit to Robin's question in terms of, and maybe rephrase it a little bit for each of you. The question is, how is RCS expected to evolve in a world of mobile apps? But actually, maybe kind of not necessarily looking at it that way, but how do you feel that RCS, or what do you feel RCS offers brands that maybe apps don't, or how does it serve brands, consumers' needs in a way that is different, maybe more advantageous than a mobile app would be? So yeah, this is an off-topic question, so I'm going to throw this at Emily first, because she's looking like she knows the answer.
I think for me, it's if I'm thinking about all the apps that are on my phone, which is probably, definitely way more than I need. And I use a core set of them, like maybe 6 or 7. I spend most of my time in messaging app of some sort. I'm an Apple user, so I'm in a Messages app. And when I'm in Europe and I've been in WhatsApp and interacting with a brand, right? That's pretty amazing to interact with a brand in the same place where you're messaging. Not to say that, mobile apps are bad place. But I feel like if
Mm.
I'm already there and I can message with a brand in a place I already am,
Yeah,
that's a
yeah.
win-win. That's one less app that I have to download. That's one less place that I have to jump to. And it's
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one thing that sticks out
Yeah,
in my
and
mind
if I
most.
think about to kind of follow your train of thought, the number of apps on my phone, if I look at one category of apps that I have the most of, it's travel. I think every different airline that I've traveled on, and it's been a busy 18 months for flights, I've got their app and probably used it once, maybe twice. So I mean, maybe kind of flip into you on that one, David, as well. Is I personally see that travel hospitality is kind of a really nice area, a really nice vertical for where messaging can maybe save some budget and help consumers with the download fatigue. What are your thoughts in terms of that as an industry?
Yeah, well, I probably I would like to give some thoughts about the apps, because I mean, I was working in Google and we already have been facing this approach. For me, there are three key critical things that are important. I think Emily mentioned one of them is like your app is already preloaded. Every single device is gonna come with Google Messages, and it's gonna come with iMessage, and both of them they support RCS. So that is by default already in every device. The second is like people is very fatigued. I mean, many already mentioned, but I mean the point is like is really fatigued about push notifications, and I think that nobody take an action on a push notification, and the push is gone after you get like a long term of push notifications, and that is going to be important. And the third one is like we are aiming to be global. There are many markets where not everybody has the ability and the capability of the devices to download every single app on the device. They're running out of memory or they're running out of capability. So those three things are critical components in order just to do that. But said that, I mean, to the point on user experiences, I mean, it's like going to things like travel. One of the projects I was working on Google was the integration with Google Wallet. I think that was very intentional, because we were seeing some cases. I mean, not yet in the US. I hope in the US we will have some of them too. Like, but in Vietnam Airlines, and like this is a great channel to receive notifications from the brands. Like you have a flight disruption or there's something going on that you need to take an action, like a check-in is available. You basically don't need an app in order just to do that. You can potentially use the channel in order just to do all the check-in and eventually get in the boarding pass and upload the boarding pass into your wallet, and you're done. I don't mean that I don't want to use the mobile apps, because I've been using the airline apps here in the US and are awesome. But this can be a perfect complementary channel where either network is not available very well, or where the device has limitations, or you need to ensure that the user receive a very timely message that is critical for their flight experience. And they're not going to get it through a push notification. They're going to get it through an RCS message.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. I think the point you touched on there in terms of kind of maybe that notification fatigue as well is really interesting. I think, and I speak personally, the probably only notification I actually have set to make any kind of noise or vibration is my default messaging app. None of my other messaging apps, none of my other apps do I have that set for, because I know I'll eventually see the notification when I go back to my phone, because I'm on my phone pretty much every 5-10 minutes anyway. Another area, another vertical where kind of apps are really popular in financial sector. And actually, there's again another question from Robin's coming. I'm going to direct it at you, because I think it's a really interesting one actually. So, in that context, in that vertical, in where compliance and there are strict governance around communications and trust becomes hugely important. What role can RCS play around customer engagement and customer support as well?
Yeah.
I think that maybe is served in other means currently.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'll briefly touch on the app side and then tackle this question. And so, in my opinion, with the app fatigue, it's really the consistency of the experience as well. And so each different app is going to have its own unique way of doing things. So its own unique UI, its own unique UX. And if you are a consumer downloading all of these different apps, you're going to have to learn that app to be able to actually get your questions answered or to figure out what you want to do inside the application. Whereas, to David's point, your messaging application is native to your phone. And so if you're doing everything through there, it's a consistent experience that's also native to your device. Now, as it relates to how RCS can help support financial institutions, I think it's a couple things. So RCS has encrypted communication, and I think it's a big thing when you are communicating directly with a financial institution. The other is the verified sender. So once you have a verified sender and you're communicating there, your customer support can very seamlessly operate within that window. It's, in my opinion, a little bit more of a trusted system, even more so than voice. I got a call yesterday from Chase Bank, and it was a 188 number that the caller ID said robocaller on my phone, and so it didn't really confer a lot of trust on my side. And so, I'm sitting there trying to Google the number, thinking, could they be masking this? Like, there's a lot of thought that I had to do on my side, but with a verified sender, that I'm able to get my questions answered. They're able to verify transactions, all of those different things that you would do with your financial institution. I think having the verified sender, having that encrypted traffic, I think that to me is how the financial institutions can really leverage this.
Yeah, that's really interesting, actually. And I think about actually the cost overhead that comes with that. As you say, robocaller, how many people actually answer those? So the decline rate will be high, and then that gets tried a couple of times. Then a real person makes an outbound call. What's the cost of that? Actually at a time where consumers they love speaking, they love sending voice memos. They don't like talking to real people in real time like we are doing here in many ways. So the power of a engaging channel that's easy to interact with. Your point about consistencies, I think, is a really, really intuitive one, really, really smart. That kind of familiarity that consumers have, but then you layer on the branding, you layer on the tick that says this is verified. Yeah, it kind of meets a number of those, or ticks a number of those boxes. But I think we need to also recognize there are challenges in the channel. There's a lot of talk about interactive communications, conversational experiences, but they just don't just happen. They need things to be implemented, particularly into legacy systems and the like, and they need budget holders to sign it off in enterprises, etc., etc. So there are always challenges to adoption. David, obviously you've worked with lots of brands and across multiple channels as well. But I think honing in here, what do you see that can hold brands back at times? What do you see as maybe those friction points, those hurdles that we as a kind of ecosystem need to help brands get through? Yes, David, sorry.
No worries. That's a really good question. I think that for me, there are two fundamental points. One is awareness. I think that is great. Consumer experience can get an amazing channel to do a lot of things with brands, and yet brands, they can do a lot of things with their customers. But in the US, it's still, it's like people are not very much aware what is the beauty of this channel and how far they can go with it, right? So that's one of the fundamental questions that, in my opinion, still the ecosystem, they need to do a much better work. And I think that, this webinar is obviously one of the great actions that you guys are doing in order just to communicate. But I think that the rest of the ecosystem, the carriers and the big players as well, they have to do a much better work in terms of driving the communication. That's one. The second is obviously, and I think that this is a very important point to Williams and your discussion about financial services, because I've seen this in the rest of the world, is like, this is a product that is being driven by carriers in the markets. And obviously it is very important that there is no fragmentation, because as SMS, you build for one and you deploy globally. It's like you as a brand are expecting to do the same thing, right? For the carriers in a particular market. So it's very important that the carriers are aligned in terms of their approach to launch the product, their approach to communicate, as well as the approach to ensure that there is a clear and very consistent commercial model that everybody can use and leverage from that perspective. So for me, that is important. And once that happens, and I think this is an important point, is because carriers are very highly regulated entities, that gives a lot of peace of mind to brands like financial services. I've seen in other markets, the brands are very reactive to use other channels because those are not regulated channels. And fortunately, RCS, and you mentioned this before, Dave, is a market, is a product that in the US is going to be following the same regulations as SMS, and it's critical for brands to ensure that they are working in a safe and regulated environment. So those for me are the fundamental points in order just to make things happen, right?
Brilliant. That's really interesting. I've seen a couple of people scan the QR code, so I'm getting lots of cream cakes. Peter, I'll need you to do that also. I'm sure somebody from the Infobip team will be able to talk to you about kind of pricing and pricing models in the US for sure. It's something that's actually a very kind of top of menu topic subject at the moment. But maybe picking up on Mohammed's question, because it kind of touches on a number of the things we've already discussed here around how RCS can support engagement, but also productivity. And I think maybe it's not just about RCS on its own, it's RCS as the means by which you can engage and support with other things such as AI and improving processes, whether it be to consumers or even internal. But maybe that's, Emily, I can kind of lean into you and to kind of touch on how you feel that you can answer that in terms of how RCS can support engagement, but also customer productivity and the customer needs, and really kind of, particularly in the automotive sector, if that's something that I can chuck your way.
Okay, wait.
Yes.
Ask me the question again.
How can RCS support engagement, but also company productivity and customer needs, understanding by the customer or the sales, especially in the automotive sectors? How can RCS help you in the automotive sector or other similar sectors drive productivity and help to understand consumer needs?
Did you say automotive? Oh man, this is not a good area for me. I'm going to pass this one to David to answer.
Okay.
I feel like you've probably got more experience in this area than I do.
So yeah, that's a really good question. I think that obviously there are other verticals like retail, but obviously automotive. I think that automotive is special from the lens that they are big brands with big high value products like cars, obviously, and accessories, which are very important, and apps, by the way. But at the same time, they work in a place where they don't sell directly sometimes to their consumers. They sell through dealers, right? So I think that those are the two key variants for upfront. So for the first one, I think what is important is like one, with a channel like RCS and the richness, and Emily mentioned about the richness of the content, the multimedia content, you can really delight the user, creating very similar experiences. I will not say exactly, but like what type of advertising you may have on a TV, but it's going to be even more personalized, so that can drive more engagement with the user and can showcase the value of your product, in this case a car, and all the functionalities, right? So competitive speaking as well, at the same time, you can complement the channel to do upselling, because once you buy a car, you want to incentivize the user to download your car app, for example, or you can incentivize the user to buy a particular accessory. And this is very easy when you have a channel and you have already that communication in place with the user, right? And the third element is like when it comes to services, for example, like you take the car to repair, and all that communication that you want to keep sure that is like, is it time for you the oil maintenance, or you have to change the wheels, or there's something going wrong with your car. You want to communicate in a customer which is very effective. So I can clearly see all these use cases. So when it comes to the dealer, I think that is a great opportunity as well to big brands to drive more opportunities to the dealers to sell more cars. But at the same time, this is a channel that gives you a lot of data back, and you can start making better decisions on how your campaigns are more effective in one particular region, how your dealers are working more effectively to specific campaigns, if this dealer is more active to these types of campaigns or less active, because you're going to be able just to get access to that data, right? So in my opinion, the combination between richness and with data is the concept of the paradigm of the umbrella that I mentioned before, of the messaging transformation channel. Now, you think digitally speaking and digital transformation element of it as an automotive company, you can find a lot of great use cases that you could never imagine before.
Yeah,
right?
no, that's really nice.
I was just going to
Please, please.
I was just going to say, I totally want to double click on that data point, because I think that all of us work in companies, but we're trying to be data driven. And I think the point that David made earlier that was really interesting is that there's a company using SMS that thinks that their target customer for SMS is in their 40s and everything else. And it's really not, it's in their 20s. And so what RCS allows you to do is pull in significantly more data. So on the carousels, you have the click-through information on every individual link, on every button. You can know exactly what your customers want. That's invaluable feedback. So it creates feedback loops that you just don't get with other channels. The comparison that I like to make, actually, we make a lot of comparisons to RCS and SMS, which is fair, of course, but I like to make it to like digital ads. And so this is sort of a new paradigm of digital advertisement, to where you are getting the same level of data that you would get on a Google ad or a Meta ad or whatever the case may be. All of that now is through the handset. So you're going to get better engagement. We know that the engagement rates are higher, and you're also going to get better data back to inform better decisions with whatever industry you're in. And so for automotive, it's, if you are selling cars, it's the type of models individuals want, the colors they want. All of those different items are feedback loops that you're going to be able to create with RCS.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I can build on top of that now, which is, from a marketer, the data part speaks to me. There's a lot that you can get, for those companies that are on SMS. They're sending basic transactional messages. As our CBO Yvonne likes to say, it's yes or no marketing. They can either say yes, no, or not answer. So the data there is super simple. But when you have something like RCS or a rich conversational experience, forget cookies. Who needed those to begin with? You're collecting all of this data on your own, that you're able to harvest the data later and, create a super, super personalized experience. And those experiences are way more engaging, better ROI. And that's what it's about at the end of the day. And so that's the win-win for me, is the customer gets the more engaging experience, and then I get to collect all the data where I get to know them better and then feed that back into the experience.
Nice.
So
to mention some things on that front, I think this is very important because this is not recent, but there was a company called Overstock.com here in the US. They were conducting user research. So basically, they were asking users, to give feedback about their experience with particular products, and you can start having, like, to Emily's point, I think we discussed this in the last week's events in Miami in the CX, the concept of zero-party data. And I think I love this concept, which is like the digital body language of the people, because you can start understanding better how people behave at a personal level to your products and to your campaigns. And this is a critical component that I don't think any channel has been able to deliver ever before to you, right? So those are fundamental elements to think about.
Yeah, no, and we'll double clicked on that. So thank you for doing that. I'm going to right click on it because there's one point also I want to kind of dig into a little bit that David kind of touched on a little bit, is around kind of the richness. If I think about auto advertising, there's very small amount of it that's on features or is on price. It's all about emotion. You watch a car ad, it's about emotion. It's about how it makes you feel. I remember, this is many years ago, one of BMW's most effective messaging campaigns, and say this was years ago and this was in the UK, was an audio file that just played the sound of the engine. And they had really effective results from that. Yes, it was a novel channel sending that via MMS, but it was really effective. So what you do get, as well as all of the kind of the really important points and totally salient kind of points around the data and the personalization, actually is the ability to have rich, engaging, and emotive content delivered to the user's device that they can actually have an emotional reaction to as well. So I think that's also one of those points that I kind of wrap around all of that, particularly from a promotional perspective, that RCS can give you for sure. Dragging it back onto agenda, because I can feel myself getting elbowed in the sides, but to keep it on track, because we were talking about kind of some of the challenges and opportunities. So kind of maybe before we start kind of heading into the look ahead, Emily, to you, if you did have a magic wand besides giving me another cream cake, what would you change about how companies are approaching messaging?
So I love magic wands. So if I had one, I would probably, I think that there's this approach with a lot of companies that they often treat, you know, SMS or other channels as separate tactics rather than one connected conversation strategy. And so I think now that you have technologies like RCS coming on board, it's available on Android and iOS devices. It's kind of like this unprecedented opportunity to create a truly unified messaging experience to meet customers where they are at. And so I think that's probably a miss, is like taking that omni-channel approach, connecting conversations across channels instead of treating them as siloed experiences.
Really nice. So kind of now looking, as I said, looking ahead, I'll kind of use the analogy a little bit where RCS is now, because it's not a new channel. It's it's been around a while. It's been talked about for quite a while, but it feels like there's a whole lot of work that's been put in place already, and we're kind of at base camp. We're at the start of the journey now. So there's still a bit of a way to go, but all the work's been done to get us here so far. So maybe to you first will be really good to know what you think, and maybe the next 12, 18 months, what do you think the future of conversational messaging, conversational consumer engagement, what do you think that looks like?
Yeah, great question. And so I think the first thing that we'll see in 12 to 18 months is really a rise in this consumer initiated conversation. So the notion to where consumers are initiating the RBM agents and are starting those conversations. And what I would love to see, I can't necessarily say that I'm predicting this, but what I would love to see is this better integrated with our existing LLMs that we all use every day. And so with Gemini, OpenAI, whatever the case may be, doing your top of funnel, mid funnel research in there, and then actually having an RBM agent that it's referencing you for the queries that you're doing, and then pulling that off into your messaging app, and then having those conversations and making those purchases. And so that's the first thing that I would love to see. I think the second thing is that I do think that we will start seeing the gap bridged between this digital marketing budgets and the SMS budgets. And I think that those are going to become, I think that marketers are going to see the power of RCS and RBM and start leveraging that, not in place of, but augmenting some of their ads with RBM and really A/B testing those two different channels to determine for their audience what works best for kind of that new lead engagement.
Nice. And so with that in mind, then maybe Emily, if you could give advice to a team just starting to explore RCS, maybe they're working in messaging at the moment, and it might be mobile messaging, might be something else, but they're really kind of, we've piqued their interests. They've bought the lines. They're bang on for it. What kind of advice would you give them in terms of how to start, what to do, how to start? Yeah, kind of what's the kind of 101 for getting into RCS?
I think it's easy to get overwhelmed when you're adopting a new technology or channel, but you don't have to boil the ocean. You can start small. So I think start with your highest value customer journey. Identify where you can insert a rich, element into that journey. Little things like all the features we've been talking today make the biggest impact. And I think, David mentioned it, and so did William, but you just at a base level, switch over to RCS, see what the difference is on the branded elements that you get at the top, the verification. You're offering something automatically that shortcode doesn't. So even if you just start there before you even get to, inserting the more rich elements of RCS, I mean, you're already going to start to be moving in the right direction. So it's a good way to get started.
Yeah.
Just start small and then keep on going. Measure the data, iterate.
And I'm going to absolutely take that opportunity to kind of highlight that, kind of as you said, it's relatively straightforward. It's to get in, to create a test agent, to see it on your phone. There's nothing like the power of seeing your brand in your inbox to kind of really drive excitement and think about how you can use that. So yes, scan the QR code and somebody from the team will be able to help with that for sure. So kind of finally over to you then, David. If you could make one kind of big bold prediction for messaging and RCS messaging, maybe in more specifically for the next 12 to 18 months, what would it be?
Well, I think that we've been already mentioning it's like I'm very bold and bullish around LLMs and AI. I think that, clearly, what we recommend our customers is to start small. Emily has mentioned, it's like there is a maturity curve that you need to understand, and you need to really understand your brand, how your brand is positioned with consumers, how your consumers react to it. But I'm very bullish on the idea that you, in the future, you're going to go and initiate a conversation with an RBM agent, or RCS for business agent, which is that's the new name that is already in the market. And you're gonna ask them, hey, you buy me a flight ticket for all my family with all these requirements, and then the agent is gonna start speaking with other agents somewhere in the world you don't know. You're gonna authorize the agent, and the agent is gonna come back to you with a proposal, and then everything after that, which is the travel experience that we were discussing before, is gonna happen right in the channel. So I'm not sure it's gonna happen in 12 months, but definitely. I think we are short in time to see this happening within probably a period of 24 months from now, probably,
Yeah,
I guess.
Yeah, that kind of that confluence of the rise of AI, and I would say AI is amazing. It's going to do it already is, but it's going to be doing wonderful things. But there's no point having a fantastic brain if you can't talk, and there's no point talking if you haven't got a fantastic brain guiding what you're saying. So having that kind of rich capability of messaging coinciding with the kind of the capabilities of AI, I think it's a really interesting time. They do very much work kind of hand in hand in that sense. I think that's kind of what we're all see lots of nodding, which are exactly that.
Yeah, I can agree more. We are in the right precise moment in time where everything is converging. And I would not say that this is only messaging, because voice is going to be a very important channel, and you also offering voice as well. So I think it's going to be a multi-channel experience on AI. But right now, messaging is at the hot core place where everything is going to happen, right? So that's how we see it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can see the time, and so I'm going to kind of wrap up now. I think firstly, just to say thank you to Emily, William, David. I think it's been a really, really interesting chat. I think there's been some really kind of insightful points that have been that each of you have raised. I think I'm kind of like to finish on that point around the opportunity that AI and RCS gives us. I think the opportunity to kind of humanize interactions, make them more seamless, more efficient, but also that kind of, and we kind of underpinned a lot of the conversation is turning the talk from messaging around what's it cost to what's its value. And I think that's, if I was to kind of have one statement, I think that would probably be it for me. So yes, Emily, David, William, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our time today. Audience, thank you very much for the questions and for the attention. This is the first of a series of webinars, so please, if you don't already, follow Infobip on LinkedIn. You'll see us post about subsequents, and you'll see our previous post about this one. Feel free to also to connect with myself, Emily, David, and William, and see us there. And thank you very much, and look forward to seeing you again on the next one.
Thanks. It's fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Thank you so much for the invitation to share our thoughts.
Absolutely.